So the fallout from the plea agreement between Michael Cohen and prosecutors has continued. This morning, Donald Trump sent out a bunch of tweets attacking his former lawyer and fixer Cohen on Thursday. Now, in the process, he might have actually messed up when it comes to attorney-client privilege. Now, let me read you one of the tweets here. He said, "I never directed Michael Cohen to break the law. He was a lawyer and he is supposed to know the law. It is called advice of counsel, and a lawyer has a great liability if a mistake is made. That's why they get paid." Oh, well, now wait a minute. So what's wrong with that? How does that eliminate attorney-client privilege? Well, it turns out, according to ACLU attorney Joshua Block, asserting an advice of counsel defense, which is what he just tried to do, generally constitutes a waiver of attorney-client privilege. He said maybe the materials withheld by the special master Barbara Jones will eventually be turned over to the Southern District of New York after all. Now, the Southern District of New York, of course, is conducting one of the investigations into Trump and his business practices that is separate from the Mueller investigation, which is supposed to look into collusion. So the Southern District of New York is actually looking into more of the financial crimes related to the Trump organization to which Cohen had been employed by, right? So now that's interesting. Now, the really interesting part here is how much information they have about Cohen and Trump's business dealings when they did the raid on Cohen's home, hotel, and offices. Now, a lot of the documents, or a significant chunk of documents, were protected by attorney-client privilege. And so, with no objections from counsel or the prosecution, according to Law and Crime here, Barbara Jones, a former judge, was appointed to the special master in charge of making the determinations of what ultimately is covered by attorney-client privilege. Now, in doing this tweet and sending this tweet out, which is now official White House communication, by the way. So that's your official government communication from Donald Trump, his Twitter account. Those privilege designations on those documents could be gone. Now, Stuart M. Gerson wrote in the National Law Review, "It is well understood that raising an advice of counsel defense consequently waives attorney-client privilege. Moreover, because of a limited waiver of the privilege is rarely recognized, the door will likely open to an examination of any relevant communication between the party and the attorney." So now they could probably look through those documents and find anything that could be related to Trump Russia or Trump money laundering or any sort of illegal thing that the Trump organization could have been up to. Uh-oh. Now, what's interesting as well, he continues, even beyond the area that encompasses the particular alleged advice of counsel at issue, meaning they could potentially look at any crime, even if it's not related. So they could now poke through those papers, allegedly, of course, poke through those papers and find evidence of other financial crimes that could get him in major trouble. Now, beyond the prospect of any sort of limited waiver being rarely recognized, a federal court in South Carolina just last year affirmed the legal principle that such a waiver is exhaustive. They said that courts in the circuit have found that when a party asserts an advice of counsel defense, the privilege waiver applies to advice received during the entire period the misconduct is alleged to have been ongoing. That was a 2017 decision made by the federal courts in South Carolina. They noted that it basically covers an area even up to and during trial. In other words, once a defendant makes the advice of counsel defense, the alleged advice from counsel is fair game for the prosecution, any and all advice from his counsel. This is basically, according to Law and Crime, a complete evisceration of the privilege for defendants at least in the district cited above. Now, wait a minute here. That's just in South Carolina, right? I mean, that's what the South Carolina federal court, district court, had ruled in a different case. Well, as far as I know, Trump hasn't committed any alleged crimes in South Carolina, right? He didn't operate a hotel there. He didn't operate a casino. He didn't operate anything in South Carolina. That is true. But wait, in the Southern District of New York, the same rule has been in effect for quite some time and was also recently affirmed in a 2015 case against a Wells Fargo employee who was being prosecuted for civil fraud alongside the bank. So, again, separate from the Mueller investigation, but there is another investigation from the Southern District of New York, which was looking into Cohen. So now, Cohen and Trump, by the way, if they find anything, now that they could look into these documents that relates to the Mueller investigation, they can pass it off. Oops. Again, in theory, Donald Trump may have just screwed himself over Twitter because he's stupid. Because he's not smart enough to realize that he just screwed himself out of attorney-client privilege. Oh, no. So now on the documents, right? So how many documents are we talking about that they could look through? Well, Special Master Jones, which, by the way, is kind of an awesome name, right? I'm the Special Master. All right. She determined that there were 7,146 documents rated from Michael Cohen's offices and residences are privileged. 285 are highly personal, and 8 are partially privileged. So, over 7,000 documents between Cohen, and it could be from between Cohen and Trump and Cohen and other clients as well. I wonder if Sean Hannity's in there. Oh, wouldn't that be insane? Sean Hannity had retained Michael Cohen at one point. And by the way, it is fun to see that Hannity had scrubbed his entire Twitter feed of tweets in favor of Michael Cohen. I wonder who else is in there. Interesting. It's going to be interesting to find out if we can end up looking through those documents, or I should say if prosecutors are able to look through those documents now that they might no longer be covered by attorney-client privilege. Not all of them are going to be related to Trump, obviously, but it wouldn't be shocking that if there is a significant amount of those documents that are related to Trump. And thanks to his dumb ass and his Twitter fingers, this privileged and protected status of these documents are now in serious jeopardy. Oh, man. Oh, if you didn't think Trump's week could get worse, that he could somehow mess it up even more for himself, well, here you go. To that I add, tick-tock, tick-tock. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.